In our today's class, we shall discuss about certain devices. Particularly, I am going to consider today cyclotron. What is meant by cyclotron? It is a device which is used to accelerate positively charged particles or positive ions. Device used to accelerate positively charged particles or ions is known as cyclotron. Actually, it was invented by Lawrence and Livingston. So, two great scientists, Lawrence and Livingston, invented this device. Let us look into the construction. It consists of two metallic discs, semicircular metallic discs. How can we imagine this? Suppose if I consider one circular shaped tiffin box, and if I cut that exactly into two equal pieces or two equal halves, then one portion can be considered as 1D, another portion can be considered as another D. So like these two metallic discs are kept close to each other with a small air gap between them. I can consider this as D1 and this as D2. These are the two metallic discs, D1 and as well as D2. And in the small space between the two discs, an ion source is kept. The two discs are next connected to an oscillator, high frequency AC source. What is the purpose of using this oscillator? The oscillator is going to produce the electric field between the two discs in this gap. In order to produce the electric field, oscillator is used. High frequency AC source known as oscillator is used. Then what about these cross marks? These cross mark represents magnetic field. Then what is the direction of this magnetic field? The direction of this magnetic field is perpendicular to the plane of this figure into the board. That means each cross mark represent one magnetic line of force entering into the board in a perpendicular direction, like this, like this, like this, like this. The two discs are kept enclosed inside a vacuum chamber. What is the purpose of using this vacuum chamber? In order to avoid the interaction of the ions emitted by the source with other air particles or outside air particles, the positively charged ions which are emitted by the source should not interact with any other particles, for example air particles. That's the purpose of enclosing these two discs inside a vacuum chamber. You can notice one small exit is provided here in one of the D, through which the particle, accelerated particle is going to come out. And also one deflecting plate is mounted at this exit, and this deflecting plate is negatively charged. It is negatively charged. Okay, this is all about the construction of the cyclotron. So a very simple construction, two metallic discs which are connected to an high frequency AC source known as oscillator, which provides the electric field in this gap between the two discs. In the same gap, an ion source is kept. It emits the ion positively charged ions. Then the two Ds are kept enclosed inside a vacuum chamber to avoid the interaction of the ions with any other outside particles, means air particles. And perpendicular to the plane of the Ds, magnetic field is also applied. And the direction of the magnetic field is perpendicular to the plane of the figure into the board. Now, we can notice from this that two fields are there. One field is magnetic field which is into the board. Another field is set up between the two Ds like this alternating electric field. Means the direction of the field keeps reversing between these two Ds. Suppose if it is from D1 to D2 for some time, then again the direction is going to reverse from D2 to D1. Again from D1 to D2, D2 to D1. So the direction of electric field keeps reversing from D1 to D2, D2 to D1, D1 to D2, D2 to D1. Now there are two fields. One field is electric field which is changing its direction alternately, and another field is magnetic field. So magnetic field and electric field are said to be mutually perpendicular to each other. That means in this we are using crossed fields. Particle is subjected to move in the crossed field, which is the combination of electric and magnetic field mutually perpendicular to each other. This is electric and this is magnetic. Then what's the purpose of using this device? I already told you, to accelerate the charged particles, particularly positively charged particles. What for these accelerated particles are required? These accelerated particles are required to make the study about the nuclear reaction and as well as the nuclear structure. By bombarding high energy particles, when once the particle gets accelerated, its kinetic energy goes on increasing. When high kinetic energy particle which comes out through this exit, which is located at the base of D1, is made to hit the target. That means, say for example, if there is a nucleus, then high energetic particle which comes out through this exit is made to hit this nucleus. This is how the nuclear studies with respect to the structure of the nucleus and also with respect to different isotopes, radioisotopes are made by making use of accelerated particles or high energy particles. Coming to the working of this cyclotron. Remember, the two metallic Ds are hollow. That means empty space will be there. That is why I told you that how to imagine two Ds. You just imagine one circular shaped tiffin box cut exactly at its middle, so that we get two portions, 1 and 2, which are hollow. So likewise you have to imagine two metallic discs. Now this source starts emitting the ion, positively charged ion. When this ion enters like this, remember the magnetic field, what actually does in this case? It is going to deviate the charged particle. It is going to deflect the charged particle. Then what is the function of this electric field? Electric field is going to accelerate the charged particle. See, electric field accelerates the charged particle, but it is not going to deviate. Whereas magnetic field is going to deviate the charged particle. Now when the charged particle enters into one of the D, say for example if I turn on the oscillator, then initially suppose if D1 is negative and D2 is positive, then what happens? This positively charged ion attracted by D1 because of its negative polarity. or because of its negative potential. So it enters into the D. But because of magnetic field which is acting on the charged particle, it's going to deviate like this. It's going to deflect and describes a circular path, semicircular path. Suppose if this charge enters with a velocity, let us say initially v1, throughout the D, it moves with the same velocity. Inside the D, velocity is not going to increase because inside the D, electric field do not exist. Electric field exists only in the gap between the two Ds. So, when once it enters with the velocity v1, because of magnetic field, instead of moving straight, it is going to deviate like this. That means it describes a circular path. By describing a circular path, now it comes to the space or to this air gap between the two Ds. When once it comes to this air gap, by that time what happens, the polarity of the 2D get reversed. That means D1 which was initially negative now becomes positive, and D2 which was initially positive becomes negative. As a result of this, what happens? This charged ion once again attracted by D2 this time. So it enters into D2. Now it enters into D2 with a velocity v2, different velocity. Then after entering into D2, it begins to move in a circular path. It moves in a circular path like this. Throughout this D2, it moves with the same velocity. What is that velocity? v2 itself. Because I told you that inside the D, the charged particle velocity is not going to increase. It is going to increase only in the gap between the two Ds. Now once again, because of magnetic field, it describes a circular path and comes to this gap between the two Ds. As soon as it comes to this gap, by that time, what happens? Again, the polarity of the 2D get reversed. Now this becomes positive and this becomes negative. Direction of electric field will be like this. Initially it was like this, from this D to this. Now when it comes to this air gap, this becomes positive, this becomes negative. So this is the direction of electric field. Now once again its velocity increases and it gets accelerated and enters into D1. With what velocity it enters? It enters with a velocity this time v3. Once again throughout the D, it moves with the same velocity. What is that velocity? v3 itself. No change in the velocity inside the D. So this process is repeated. As a result of this, the charged particle goes on describing circular path of larger radii. And every time when it moves from one D to another D, its velocity increases, thereby it gets accelerated. So, describes semicircular path like this. Then what happens? Now the charged particle, after describing semicircular path while moving from one D to another D, the path radii goes on continuously increasing. Finally, the radius of this circular path almost becomes equal to the radius of the D. When it happens when the charged particle comes almost close to periphery or the edge of the D. For example, almost like this. When it comes close to the periphery or the boundary of the D, then its kinetic energy is found to be maximum. That means all along this path it moves with an higher velocity, maximum velocity. So thereby, by the time it comes here, it's not going to enter back into this D because of this negatively charged plate known as deflecting plate. This charged particle is thrown out of this D through this exit because negatively charged plate tends to attract the particle. But since the kinetic energy of this particle is very high, that means velocity is very high, this particle is able to overcome the force of attraction produced by means of this negatively charged plate. So instead of getting attracted to this negatively charged plate, due to its high kinetic energy or high velocity, it is thrown out like this. Now finally we are able to get high kinetic energy particle out of the D. So this is how the charged particle is accelerated. So we have to remember certain important points. The first thing is oscillator provides alternating electric field, means direction of the electric field keeps changing from D1 to D2, D2 to D1, D1 to D2, D2 to D1. Whereas the magnetic field direction is not going to change. How do we apply the magnetic field? By making use of two powerful magnetic pole pieces, electromagnets. By using electromagnets, we can apply the magnetic field. Suppose if I keep north pole here at the front of this D, then south pole will be at the back of the D. So thereby magnetic field direction will be from north to south. That is why the field is inwards, perpendicular to the plane of the board. So by keeping two electromagnets, in between what will be there? In between the metallic disc setup will be there. Metallic disc setup, this is one electromagnet, another electromagnet. Between there will be two Ds. If this is north pole, if this is south pole, direction of magnetic field will be from north pole to south pole. So this is how we apply the magnetic field. Magnetic and electric are mutually perpendicular. That means in the crossed field, we are making the ion to accelerate. So this is one in which we have to remember. Then second thing is, each time the particle velocity increases only while moving from one D to another D. No increase in the velocity of the particle inside any one of the D. And the third one is, magnetic field is going to deflect the charged particle from its straight line path, whereas electric field produced by means of oscillator is going to accelerate the particle. Electric field accelerates, magnetic field deflects the path of the charged particle. This is the third one in which we have to remember. Then kinetic energy becomes maximum only when the charged particle moves close to the boundary of the D, then its kinetic energy becomes maximum, because the charged particle do not get any further space to increase its radii. Thereby it has to come out through this exit only, and it is made to thrown out by making use of negatively charged plate. Let us now derive the expression. For what? For the frequency and the time period of oscillation of the charged particle. For any particle to move in a circular path, remember one thing: centripetal force is must. Here the charged particle is describing circular path like this, circular path of increasing radii. So force acting on the charged particle is given by force acting on charged particle is given by F equal to QVB sin theta. This is the force due to magnetic field. Okay, but theta is equal to 90 degree. Why? Means particle enters like this with a velocity v, whereas magnetic field is like this. Perpendicular to the magnetic field, the charged particle is entering with a velocity v. Therefore, direction of velocity and direction of magnetic field. If this is the field, this is the direction of velocity. Both are mutually perpendicular. So that's why theta is equal to 90 degree. Thereby FB becomes equal to QVB sin 90 means 1. But this force, magnetic force acting on the charged particle, provides the centripetal force to the charged particle to describe the circular path. So therefore, what is centripetal force? Fc equal to mv square by r. What is m? Mass of the charged particle. What is r? Radius of the circular path, which continuously keeps increasing. V is the velocity in which the charged particle enters from one d to another d. M is the mass of the particle. R is the radius of the semicircular path. So I can write like this: Fb equal to Fc, because the magnetic force acting on the charged particle provides the centripetal force. So Fb now is nothing but Q into Vb equal to Fc mv square by r. We can cancel one v and v. Now find out what is v, velocity of the particle. V is equal to QBr, cross multiply this, QB into r divided by m. This is the velocity in which the charged particle enters from one d to another d. As r changes, v also changes. That means if v changes, r changes. Whereas q, charge of the particle, remains same. Magnetic field is uniform, that remains constant. M, mass of the charged particle, that also remains constant. Only thing is velocity keeps changing because of electric field. Okay? Then this is the velocity. But the important point to be noted here is, how does the direction of electric field changes when the particle moves from one d to another d? What happens in this case? Suppose if the particle starts moving like this with a velocity, because of magnetic field it describes a circular path. Now by the time it comes out of this d, by that time what happens? The polarity of the 2d should get reversed. Initially if this d is negative and if d is positive, then by the time the particle comes out of this d, this should become positive and this d should become negative. How it is achieved? How can we perform this action? It is just by means of oscillator. Means adjust the frequency of AC. See, this is nothing but the waveform of AC, alternating current. This is positive off cycle of AC and this is negative off cycle of AC. How do you represent alternating current in the form of a wave? Means this is how we represent. It is nothing but sinusoidal variation. During positive off cycle, if this d is suppose negative and if this d is positive, by the time the charged particle comes out of this d, this should become negative and this should become positive. This should become positive and this should become negative. How it is done? By adjusting the frequency of AC. The frequency of AC should be in such a way that frequency of AC has to be adjusted. How do you adjust this? Should be adjusted in such a way that the time period or else the time taken by the charged particle to describe semicircular path should be equal to half of the time period of AC. Suppose for one complete cycle, if the time period of AC for one complete cycle is T, then to describe the semicircular path, adjust the frequency in such a way that the time period, so the time taken by the particle to describe semicircular path should be equal to half of the period of AC. What is the period of AC? It is T. Should be T by 2. This is how we have to adjust the frequency of AC by means of this oscillator. If we do so, then what happens? By the time it comes out of 1D, the polarity gets reversed. So this is one important condition to be remembered. Otherwise, you cannot produce the alternating field, and it may become difficult to accelerate the charge particle. So this is what we have to do. Then what is this T? T is the time taken to describe semicircular path, whereas capital T is the total time taken for one complete cycle of AC. You must know the difference between small t and capital T. Time for semicircular path, small t, time for one complete cycle is capital T. So, T equal to, simple formula, distance by velocity or distance by speed. Okay. What is distance? Distance means semicircular path distance, which is nothing but pi r. Because one complete circular path, if you consider its total length is 2 pi r, which is nothing but circumference. But here only half of the semicircular path, therefore it's nothing but pi r. Speed, already equation is there, v. Substitute for this, T equal to pi r divided by, for v I can write QBR divided by m. This m goes to numerator. Okay, then what do we get here? R and R gets cancelled, pi m divided by QB. So pi m divided by QB. So this is the time required by the particle to describe every semicircular path each time. Come back to this equation. What is capital T from this now? Capital T is given by cross multiply this 2 into T. Now you make the substitution for T in this equation. 2 into T is given by pi m divided by Q. Okay, pi m divided by QB. Okay, now this is the time period taken by the particle, charged particle. Small t is the time for only half of the path, circular path. Now capital T is nothing but time taken to describe one complete circular path. How do we define a period of anything? Period is nothing but time taken for one to complete one oscillation or one vibration or to complete one rotation. If you consider oscillation and vibration, left to right, right to left, one oscillation, for that time T is nothing but, time period is nothing but capital T. Suppose if you consider one vibration like this, top to bottom, bottom to top, that's one vibration. For that one vibration, the time period can be represented as T. So here, to complete one circular path, the time period is T, whereas T is the time only for half of the circular path. Then what is the frequency of revolution of this charged particle? So frequency of revolution of the charged particle is given by nu equal to 1 by T. Nu equal to 1 by T. Then what do we get? 1 by T, capital T is given by 2 pi m divided by QB. So if QB goes to numerator, then it is, this goes to numerator, QB divided by 2 pi m. You just observe this equation and also this equation, these two equations. One for the period, means time taken to complete one circular path. Another frequency, that means number of rotations or revolutions made by the charged particle in 1 second. In both this equation, The term like velocity or radius not involved. This equation is independent of V and R. Okay, so this equation is independent of V and R. V is not there and even R is not there. R is the radius of semicircular path. V is the velocity of the charged particle. Even in this equation, V and R are not there. That means the time period and frequency of rotation of the charged particle are independent of velocity and radius. Velocity and radius. This is the principle that is made used in cyclotron to accelerate the charged particle. So what's the principle? The principle of the cyclotron is the time period, means time taken to complete one circular path, is independent of velocity and radius. So this is one of the point to be remembered, and we can drag the idea of making this charged particle to accelerate as a principle by making use of these two equations. So these two equations says that independent of R and V. So that's the principle that is adopted in cyclotron to accelerate the charged particle. I already told you where actually the cyclotron is used. It is used to study about the structure of the nucleus and also to produce different radioisotopes which are useful for medical purpose. And it is also used, how it is done? See, if we make the charged particle which is coming out with high kinetic energy, if it is made to hit a target nucleus, so by making the charged particle to hit the target nucleus like this, we can produce different isotopes, radioisotopes. And these radioisotopes are found to be useful in the field of medicine. And also we can make these charged particles, we can implant these charged particles into different solids to change their basic properties. Suppose if there is a solid, chalk piece is a solid substance. If I want to change its basic property, then what I can do means I have to implant certain charged particles. To implant the charged particles into it, the charged particle should be made to it with high energy, high kinetic energy. For that, cyclotron is required because it provides high kinetic energy to the particle. Using that high kinetic energy, we can make the particle to enter into this solid and to remain into that solid, and we can change the original property of the solid. That's nothing but implanting the ions into the solid. So these are the applications of the cyclotron. Then coming to one more device. What is the device means? Moving coil galvanometer. Moving coil galvanometer. See, using this equation, we shall also find out, before going into that, we shall find out one more equation for the kinetic energy of the charged particle. Usually what's kinetic energy? Kinetic energy is given by half mv square. When will be kinetic energy maximum? Kinetic energy of the charged particle is maximum only when it comes close to the boundary of the D or the periphery of the D. So the particle which is moving all along the circular path will have maximum velocity and maximum kinetic energy. Then what is that kinetic energy? Half mv square, kinetic energy maximum I rate, velocity maximum I rate. This is half m. Substitute for V. How do you substitute for V? Already I told you that always centripetal force Fc is equal to magnetic force. Centripetal force is mv square by r, then magnetic force is QVB. But remember, change this R. But here capital R should be used because the charge particle is describing radius equal to the radius of the D. So if this semicircular path has a radius almost equal to radius of the D, then velocity increases, kinetic energy also increases. So replace small r by capital R. Small r is the radius of each of the semicircular path which continuously varies, whereas capital R is the radius of the D right from ear to ear. So radius of the D. So if I cancel V and V, then V is equal to QBR divided by M. If I substitute that V in this equation, now kinetic energy maximum becomes equal to half M V square. V square means square this. This is maximum velocity. If we square this, what do we get now? Q square, B square, R square divided by M square. Cancel off M and M. Then this will be Q square, B square, R square divided by 2M. This is the expression for maximum kinetic energy of the particle that comes out of the D. Now we shall move on to the next concept. Once again, it is all about the device, electrical device. What is meant by moving coil galvanometer? It is nothing but an electrical device used to detect or measure the current. Current means what? A very small magnitude current, feeble current of the order 10 to the power of minus 6 ampere. That means microampere. So 10 to the power of minus 6 ampere means microampere. 1 micro is 10 to the power of minus 6. Such a small current can be detected by making use of one sensitive device. Current sensitive device. That's nothing but moving coil galvanometer. Okay. So electric device used to detect or measure the current. Suppose in a circuit, if current is flowing, along which direction current is flowing, whether current is flowing from this side to this side or from this side to this side, the direction of flow of current can also be detected by making use of moving coil galvanometer. It is not only used to measure or detect the current, it can also be used to find the direction along which the current is flowing in a circuit. Then on what principle it works? If I want to consider the principle, then look into those figures at the end. Here I have written one figure. Let us consider one solid rod. At the two ends of the rod, if I apply two forces, one force upward, one force downward I am applying. Okay. These two forces are equal in magnitude. Then what happens by applying these two forces? This rod is going to rotate like this. Suppose if this is the rod, and now if I apply the force like this, one force upward and one force downward, then what happens? It begins to rotate like this. That means a torque is said to be acting. Torque is said to be acting on this rod. Okay, this is mechanical torque. Coming to the electrical one, electrical torque. Suppose if I consider a coil of wire, here I have taken rectangular coil of wire through which some current I is flowing. If I keep this rectangular coil through which some current is flowing in an external magnetic field B, then what happens? Once again on this coil, two forces will act. That means if you imagine this itself as a coil, okay, this itself as a coil. If one force acts like this, another force, if one force at this edge or at this end, if it acts outwards, then force at this edge will act inwards. What happens now? The coil begin to rotate like this. Once again, it's because of torque. In this case, it's nothing but electric torque. Here it is mechanical torque. How do you measure this mechanical torque? Magnitude of any one of the force and perpendicular distance between the two force. Between this force and this force, the perpendicular distance is d. So if you multiply F by d, that's going to give mechanical torque. What about this electrical torque? The torque acting on this coil because of these two forces is given by tau. Here also the symbol is tau, Greek notation. Tau equal to NBIA. What is N? Number of turns. The coil consists of several number of turns. N. B. External magnetic field, uniform magnetic field. I. Current flowing through the coil. A. Area of the coil, not area of cross section. Area, entire area of the coil. So this is nothing but an electric torque. Coming to the principle now. Then what's the principle of this moving coil galvanometer? See, the principle is, when a coil of wire carrying current is kept in an uniform magnetic field, then torque acts on the coil. So this is the principle on which the moving coil galvanometer works. Now let us look into the construction. Here I have written two figures. Look here. This is one figure, this is another figure. Written in a various figure. This to show mechanical torque, this to show how the torque acts on a coil of wire carrying current. This is nothing but the front view of the moving coil galvanometer, and this is nothing but the top view. This is nothing but front view. See, this is nothing but rectangular coil which is mounted by means of an axle over two jewel bearings. Here one jewel bearing is there, another jewel bearing is there. Remember, moving coil galvanometer usually consider two types. It is of two types. One is suspended type galvanometer, another one is pivoted. Pivoted means fixed rigidly by means of some support. Here what is the support I used to fix this coil? Some axle is there. Thin wire will be in the form of axle. Strong thin wire. So the coil is mounted over two jewel bearings with the help of an axle between two curved magnetic pole pieces. Look here. If this is one pole piece, this will be another pole piece. Concave shaped pole pieces, magnetic pole pieces, powerful magnetic pole pieces. Between these two, with the help of axle, the coil is mounted. Now, at the top of the coil, you can notice spiral air spring made up of phosphor bronze material, alloy wire. So, spiral air spring are fixed, one at the top of the coil and another at the bottom of the coil. Inside the coil, a soft iron cylinder is also mounted. It is mounted in such a way that it should not make contact with the coil. That means with the help of insulating wire or thin plastic wire, strong plastic wire, the soft iron cylinder is supported inside the coil. See, there is some space between the coil and as well as the soft iron. Remember, the coil is wound on a rectangular non-magnetic frame. This is an aluminum rectangular frame. Aluminum is non-magnetic, over which several number of turns like this, several number of turns of wire are wound like this over this rectangular frame. Now, let us study what are the function of each one of these parts that are used in this moving coil galvanometer. First of all, the concave shaped pole pieces is used to produce radial magnetic field. Radial magnetic field. We shall know about radial magnetic field little later. Then why these spiral air springs are provided? The spiral air springs are provided to produce restoring torque or counter torque. One torque will be produced in the coil because of current. Opposite to that torque, one more torque should be created. And that is done with the help of spiral air spring. Then what's the use of soft iron? Here concave pole pieces are used to produce radial magnetic field. Soft iron is used to increase the strength of the magnetic field. The magnetic field strength at the center of the coil should be made strong. Because of permeability of this iron, because of strong permeability, the field can be intensified at the center of the coil. But the pole piece produces uniform magnetic field that can be made bit strong at the center of the coil with the help of this soft iron cylinder, which is a ferromagnetic material. Then spiral air springs, already I told you it is used to provide restoring torque. See, this is nothing but the front view. Come back to the top view now. Don't forget the functioning of the parts. Concave pole pieces, radial magnetic field. Soft iron intensifies or makes the field strong at the center of the coil. These two, spiral air spring provides the counter torque or restoring torque to the coil. In the coil, because of flow of current, one torque will be produced, that is deflecting torque. Another torque in the same coil is produced because of the spiral air spring known as restoring torque or counter torque. Coming to the top view, before that get into this figure now. Look here, radial magnetic field means this. You can notice all these are magnetic field lines. They are directed all along the radius of this circular path. This is nothing but top view. How will be the top view now? Look here, this is nothing but top view. Whereas this one is nothing but, if you view like this, it is front view. See, slowly look here. I am going to change the direction. Then this becomes now top view. Okay. So just I am going to turn this entire arrangement. If I turn like this, now this can be seen from the top. If you see the coil and as well as the iron cylinder, how it looks like this. So this is the top portion of the coil, this one, and this is nothing but white color circle indicates the top portion of this iron cylinder. So this is coil and this is iron cylinder. These are the magnetic field lines all along the radius of the circular path. So since these magnetic field lines are along radius or along radii, we call this as radial magnetic field. Okay. Then here, how the iron cylinder is going to make the field strong. See, this magnetic line of force, instead of passing straight like this, because of iron cylinder, it deviates like this. And we know that no two magnetic lines of force are going to intersect with each other. They do not cross each other, because that's one of the basic property of magnetic line of force. If they do so, if they intersect with each other, then definitely it is the violation of the property of magnetic line of force, which is not going to happen. So magnetic line, this line, instead of passing straight like this, because of this iron cylinder, it comes very close to the iron cylinder and moves away like this towards south pole. So the field line which comes out from north pole, then because of iron cylinder deviates like this and moves towards south pole. Similarly, this field line, look at this field line, instead of passing straight like this, it comes close to the iron cylinder, then it passes towards south pole. So same thing happens here. This field line, instead of moving straight like this, it is going to deviate close to the iron and then turns towards south pole. Here what's happening? All the field lines are coming very close to the iron cylinder. We know one basic property with respect to magnetic line of force. If the magnetic lines of force are close to each other, then the field will be stronger. If the magnetic lines of force are a bit far away, then field will be weaker. So in order to make the field strong, iron cylinder is used. This is how the field becomes strong. Iron cylinder is going to drag all the lines of force close to it. When all the lines of force comes close to each other without meeting each other, without intersecting with each other, then the field becomes strong. Then what is the use of this radial magnetic field? See what happens. Suppose if I consider the coil like this is the coil. Consider this as the top portion of the coil. So this is top. Let's consider this the coil. Now I am going to consider the top portion of the coil like this. This is the top one. When the coil deflects, that means when it comes to any one of the position, say for example, this is the coil. When it comes or rotates like this, or rotates like this, or even if it rotates like this, what happens? At any position of the coil, you can notice that the area vector, what is meant by area vector? Area vector is a vector drawn perpendicular to the plane of the coil. If this is the coil plane, then area vector is drawn outwards like this, perpendicular to it. Look here now, this is area vector. Let us first consider this magnetic line of force, which is horizontal. When this magnetic line of force horizontal, this is nothing but area vector. What the angle made by the area vector with this magnetic line? So magnetic line is horizontal, whereas this area vector is vertical. So therefore this area vector makes an angle of 90 degree with this magnetic line. Similarly, you consider this magnetic line. That means when the coil rotates like this, now the area vector is like this. Once again, to this magnetic line, area vector is found to be perpendicular. So whenever coil rotates and comes to any one of the position, at each position the area vector is found to be perpendicular to the magnetic line. To this line it is perpendicular. Now suppose if it rotates like this, then to this line this area vector is perpendicular. Suppose if it comes like this, then to this line, horizontal magnetic line, this area vector is perpendicular. Even if it comes like this area vector is perpendicular. When once the area vector becomes perpendicular, then angle theta will be equal to 90 degree. So in order to keep the angle theta constant 90 degree, which is the angle between the area vector and the magnetic field, radial field is required. This radial field cannot be produced by making use of bar magnets, can be produced by making use of curved magnets only, that means concave shaped magnets. Now, this is all about the construction, and you can notice one light aluminum pointer is attached to this coil. This pointer is going to deflect over a graduated scale. It indicates the amount of current flowing through the coil. The amount of current that flows through the coil can be found out by means of a scale and an aluminum pointer. As the coil deflects, pointer also deflects over the graduated scale, indicating the amount of current. Now coming to, it's a mathematical equation. Now I think we understood what's the use of radial field and what's the use of soft iron cylinder, how it makes the field strong, that we understood. Coming to the theoretical part, if I consider theoretical part of this, I want to consider the equation of the torque. Torque acting on the coil because of current flow. Because of current flow, what is the torque that acts? It's given by tau equal to mb I into A. Already I told you n is the number of turns in the coil, B is the radial magnetic field which is uniform, I is the current flowing through the coil, and A is the area of the coil. Now what happens in this case? When the coil rotates, initially the coil position may be like this, When the coil rotates or deflects like this, what happens to the bottom spring here? When the coil rotates either like this or like this, the bottom spring gets twisted. That means it gets tightened up. If it rotates, along with that, the spring also gets twisted like this. Then once the spring gets twisted like this, then it means that because of its elasticity, an opposite or counter torque is going to act. This is nothing but deflecting torque. Torque acting on the coil, what type of torque it is? Deflecting torque. It is because of current, whereas because of rotation of the spring or twist of the spring, one more torque will act on the same coil. That is nothing but restoring torque. Restoring torque or counter torque, which is given by tau r, which is equal to, tau r is equal to, I write this as k into phi. So clearly understand these two torques. No current, the coil position is like this. When once we pass the current, initially the coil was like this. Then once we pass the current, it deflects like this because of deflecting torque. But because of rotation of spring and due to its elasticity, the spring, on the spring, one more torque acts. In which direction? Opposite direction. If spring gets rotated like this along with the coil, then restoring torque will act in the opposite direction. If rotation is like this, then the restoring torque will be in the opposite direction. So, deflecting torque, restoring torque. The restoring torque will avoid the coil rotating unnecessarily more. Imagine if there are no springs, then the coil would have rotated like this, would have started spinning like this. It is because of spring only the coil is not able to undergo extra rotation, because the spring provides the restoring torque. Now what happens when the deflecting torque and the restoring torque both becomes equal and they are also opposite to each other? So when tau d equal to tau r, an equilibrium is established in the coil. That means the coil is not going to rotate further. It starts rotating till the deflecting torque becomes equal to restoring torque. When both get balanced, tau d becomes equal to tau r, then it gets balanced. In such a case, the rotation of the coil stops. When once the coil rotates, what happens? The aluminum pointer also rotates. If the coil rotates like this, aluminum pointer also rotates along with the coil, indicating the deflection. That means angular deflection of the coil can be found out or expressed in terms of current, because this is a calibrated scale which shows the current corresponding to angular deflection of the coil. Suppose if the coil deflects 1 degree, then the pointer may move 1 division. If the coil deflects by 2 degree, then the pointer may move 2 division. If the coil moves by about 3 degree, then the pointer may show 3 division. So like that, this scale is calibrated to convert angular deflection into electric current. Substitute for this. NBIA is equal to tau r, means k into phi. Then what is I? I equal to k into phi divided by NBE. What is k called as? Here k is known as torsional constant. Torsional constant. of the spring, spiral air spring. Then what is phi? It's nothing but angular deflection. Of the coil or the twist produced in the coil. Angle of twist, angular deflection, or angle of twist in the spring. Okay. So I think it is better to consider this as angular deflection. Let us not get into confusion. I remove this. So K is known as torsional constant, or it can also be considered as torque produced per unit twist. That means if the coil deflects by 1 degree, then what is the torque that acts on this coil for 1 degree? That is nothing but K. Torsional constant, or what can we say? Twist produced per unit deflection. So I equal to K into phi, N into B into A. This is the expression for the current. You look into this equation now. K is a constant, it depends upon the spring. Then N, I use capital N. One correction, capital N is used, number of turns. Number of turns in the coil remains constant. Magnetic field between the two pole pieces, radial field remains constant. Area of the coil also remains constant. Then what is that which changes? Phi. Because if current is changed, angle of deflection of the coil also changes. So all these are constant terms. So I can write this as I equal to G into phi. Then what is this G? This G is known as galvanometer constant. G equal to known as galvanometer constant. So I can write like this, I is proportional to phi since G is a constant. That means current is directly proportional to angular deflection. That means angle of deflection of the coil. So larger the current, larger will be the deflection. Okay. I already told you, suppose if you pass 1 microampere, the coil may deflect by 1 degree. If you pass 2 microampere, the coil may deflect to 2 degree. If you pass 3 microampere, the coil may deflect by 3 degree. We can calibrate in any manner. So current is directly proportional to the deflection, angular deflection. So this is all about the expression for the current that flows through the coil. Now, suppose if you want to consider the sensitivity of the galvanometer, if I consider 2 galvanometer, say for example, 1 galvanometer shows this much of deflection right from its initial position. Another galvanometer shows only this deflection. We can notice in these 2 cases, the deflection is found to be large. If this is theta 1 and if this is theta 2, from initial position it may deflect up to here. From initial position it may deflect up to here. From these 2 galvanometer, we can find out that this galvanometer is more sensitive than this. That means a galvanometer is said to be more sensitive if it produces large deflection for the small current. Here the current in which I am going to pass through this galvanometer is 1 microampere. Here also I am going to pass same current. For the same current, 2 galvanometers are showing 2 different deflection. It clearly shows that large deflection is seen from this galvanometer G1, whereas small deflection is from G2. So we can say that G1 is more sensitive than G2. So simply we can say like this, the galvanometer is said to be more sensitive if it produces large deflection for a small current. Okay, thank you.